العالمين بالقادر اللهم صل وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المنتجبين سيما بقية الله روحي وأرواح العالمين له الفداء. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا. قال الله الحكيم في محكم كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ولقد ذرأنا لجهنم كثيرا من الجن والإنس لهم قلوب لا يفقهون بها ولهم أعين لا يبصرون بها ولهم آذان لا يسمعون بها أولئك كالأنعام بل هم أضل أولئك هم الغافلون. آمنا بالله صدق الله العلي العظيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Dear mu'mineen and mu'minat, brothers and sisters, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept our a'mal, our efforts in this month of Ramadan and make us amongst the real sa'imeen, insha'Allah. A quick summary of what we have discussed so far in this month of Ramadan, continuing from last year, the concept of zuhd or asceticism, detachment from dunya. And this year, after we insha'Allah detached, it is an ongoing process though. It's not something that we can just say, I'm done, that's it. Dunya constantly has ghurur, and nafs constantly wants dunya. As long as the nafs has not gotten up and high beyond even nafsul lawama, as far as nafsul mutma'inna, it will still want dunya, and dunya is still going to deceive us. This year, or since the beginning of the month, I spoke of the importance of tazkiyatun nafs and the fact that it is, as we are told in the riwayat, in the narrations, that it is the greater of the jihad, the two jihad. One is jihadul asghar, which is to the fight in the battlefield and risk your life, and the other one is jihadul akbar, which is to constantly, and I mentioned last night, why is it called and considered akbar? If we compare the two, one is continuous and one is on and off depending on the situation. If there is a situation of war and there is a situation of an offensive war from an enemy, then you go out and defend. If there is no enemy, no war, there is no responsibility of jihad. Al-Asghar, that's why it is considered Asghar. That's one of the reasons. Also the fact that the enemy in Jihadul Asghar is very clear. We know, we see, where it's obvious who the enemy is, yet in the Jihadul Akbar, the enemy is not one we can see. Whether it is our nafs, nafsul ammara, we don't see it, we don't recognize the animosity, or shaitan, or even some people who may be the closest people to us in some cases, our partner and some close relatives and so on. So it is a difficult journey. We have to start that journey. I spoke of first detaching, then beautifying ourselves with obviously the beautification of the wajibat after we have stayed away from the muharramat. Obviously, part of detachment of dunya or from dunya is to abstain from muharramat, in fact, because حب الدنيا رأس كل خطيئة. It is love of dunya that drags us into all types of sins. So if we detach and we abstain from sins, then we come to the level of beautification. And beautification has to do, one, with the ibadat, our acts of worship, but more importantly, beautification in terms of our akhlaq, our interactions and behavior with other people, or with everything that's around us. And that in fact includes our acts of worship. Akhlaqul abd does not mean that I say Allahu Akbar. Earlier, Brother Hassan was listening to one of the speakers or scholars on the tafsir of Allama Tabatabai. And it was a nice analogy. I walked in as he was saying exactly what I want to share with you, or what I had intended to share with you, that we say Allahu Akbar. Where is the akhlaq of a abd? Where are the etiquette and the ethics and the morals of a abd, a servant, when he says Allahu Akbar and in his mind everything else is greater? Wal-'ayadu billah. Money is greater, houses are greater, I don't know, women are greater, cars are greater, everything else is greater, and he says it's a lie. So adabul abd, it is part of akhlaq, part of the etiquette and the ethics of an abd is to beautify his salat. At least when I pray, I don't think of these things. Yes, you can think of them throughout the day, when in actual fact, وَاذْكُرُوا اللَّهَ ذِكْرًا كَثِيرًا means think of God throughout the day. Do your salat at its given time, but think of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala throughout the day. It doesn't stop. Nonetheless, if you think of business and all worldly things, other times, at least not during the salat, and then we have to ascend. It's step by step. It's an ongoing process. Step one is we stayed away from muharramat. Now we're in the realm of ibadat. We are praying. If you are praying, then we should not be doing muharramat, because inna salata tanha anil fahsha'i wal munkar. Indeed, it prevents fahsha and munkar. It doesn't combine with them. If we're still doing fahsha and munkar, we're not praying. Our salat is not salat. You want to judge your salat? Judge it by whether or not you are continuing, wal-'ayadu billah, or we are continuing to commit sins knowingly, deliberately, without any kind of hesitation. That simply means that salat is not accepted and has not reached its goal. Now when we have gotten to this point, now we're trying to beautify the salat. Then further than that, we come to a level of constant dhikr, where one is thinking and their mind is always occupied with what pleases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Man asbaha wa amsa wa dunya kullu hammeh. The worst kind of abd, in fact, the worst type of ubudiyya is that one spends their day and night, all they can think of is dunya. And in the hadith, he says, Man asbaha wa amsa wa dunya akbaru hammah, ja'ala Allahu al-faqra bayna aynayh. Whoever spends their day and night and the biggest thing they care about is dunya, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes them feel poor regardless of their circumstances. I am paraphrasing here. Word by word translation is, God will make faqr before their eyes, poverty before their eyes. All he can see is poverty. In other words, whatever he does, he fears poverty. He has millions, he fears poverty. He has the best circumstances, he feels poverty. He has a great job, he feels poverty. Always, what if I lose my job? Give for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, give sadaqah jariyah, pay towards it'am, Iftarul Sa'imin, It'amul Masakin. I'm not saying people here are masakin. They're two different things. I didn't put it in one sentence meaning it's the same thing. It's a different concept. It'amul Sa'imin is one rewarding act. Iftarul Sa'imin is one rewarding act, and It'amul Masakin is another rewarding act. All of these things, when you tell them, they fear poverty. They give the minimum, the bare minimum. Why? Because they fear poverty. This is not definitely the akhlaq of a abd. Akhlaq of a abd, he trusts in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Akhlaq of a abd, the ethics of a abd, is that he knows that he is the sustainer. He doesn't fear poverty. He remembers him more than dunya. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is what occupies his mind, not business, not the house, not the mortgage, not these things. If these things are all what's in his mind, believe me, he will struggle here before the hereafter. But if all he can think of is pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, his affairs will be taken care of. One of the best acts which, alhamdulillah, we had the opportunity this year of performing is this act of i'tikaf. And I would really recommend that the believers try and do i'tikaf once in a while, every now and then. It's a great boost, yes. Sure. I'tikaf? Yeah. Ahsant. Yes. Yeah. Inshallah, I'll tackle this, inshallah. Ahsantum. So, i'tikaf is when you spend time, you can call it spiritual retreat, or you can call it spiritual seclusion. It has some rules, obviously. It has to be in a masjid. It has to be in the state of fasting. Whether it's in the month of Ramadan, you're automatically fasting. If it's another time of the year, you have to be fasting. And it has to be a minimum of 3 days. It also has other rules: no use of perfume and scents and so on. And all the things that invalidate fasting is haram during i'tikaf. And some of them are haram even at night in terms of relationships and so on. And so it has its rules in that regard. It comes from عاكفين في المساجد, and in the Quran it's there, ولا تقربوهن وأنتم عاكفون في المساجد. One of the rules is that you do not get intimate and so on during that time. Obviously, in today's masajid, it can't happen because a masjid is a masjid. You can't have your wife next to you or something, but it's referring to the bigger masajid. Let's say you go to Masjid Sahla, for example. Even then, you cannot, and so on. So there are certain rules that apply during that time. It is a great time, similar to Hajj, but for those who cannot afford Hajj, or they have done Hajj and they don't want to pay more money to this regime, they want to send other people to Hajj, but they still want some spiritual time for themselves. It's a great opportunity to actually get involved in that. One of the things that happens is that you realize that it's like you have detached from dunya now. You've gone out of dunya. And your affairs are no longer in your hands. God is taking care of it. It's like when you go to Hajj. You go to Hajj, you leave behind the wife, the children, or the husband, or whatever it is. You leave behind the business, everything is left behind. And that's why there is a dua of istawda'tuhum, that you are leaving them, entrusting them with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and so on. You pay your debt. As you are going in a situation that you could possibly not come back. And at that time, you will realize how it is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes care of your affairs. In my situation, it was better than when I was there in the picture. Believe it or not. It is my personal experience. I am sharing it with you, not to brag or, but to tell you how really Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who takes care of things. It was taken care of better than when I'm in the picture, subhanallah. This is the reality of it. So do not have dunya akbaru hammina wala mablaghu ilmina in the dua, that Ya Allah, do not make dunya the biggest concern and all what we have knowledge about and care about, that we want to learn about dunya. We would learn the language, we would learn how to use computers, we would learn accounting, taxation, laws and whatever else for the sake of dunya. But for the sake of akhirah, we hardly spend any time to improve ourselves in that journey and so on. That's regarding the other question, and inshallah I'll come back to the discussion, but it is important to reflect on that one. One of the nights I spoke of wudu and it being a spiritual journey. One of the best cures for concentration on salat, or I'll give two. One is praying on time. Two is when you start the wudu, you start the journey. Your salat starts from wudu. Basically, when you start your wudu with the dua of the wudu, with the concentration and attention on the dua of the wudu, you start there. Don't talk to wife and kids or husband and whatever. Don't get distracted with a phone or TV. Don't just do wudu thinking it's just pouring some water on my hand and face and that's wudu. That's not wudu. I'm sorry. Wudu is not physical. Wudu is a spiritual journey. If wudu is better, salat will be better. In Sirr al-Salat, our great scholar has clearly said it, that the better your wudu, the better your salat. Direct reflection. The more spirituality in your wudu, the more spirituality in the salat. And the second one is on time. Why is it so significant on time? In fact, Allama Sayyid al-Qadi, the teacher of most of today's Arafa and scholars, including Allama Tabatabai, he used to say to his students, pray on time. You want to reach? They asked him, how do I reach? I want to do Sayr Suluk and whatever and reach the higher statuses. He says, pray on time. One thing, pray on time. How does it work? One of the ways I have noticed that it makes a huge difference is the prioritizing in life. How we prioritize. If salat has the bigger priority, then I make sure I'm praying on time. Then when I come to pray, that's the bigger thing. But if everything else has a priority, and I have to finish what I'm doing, let me finish this task, when I come to pray, the task is still on my mind. It won't leave my mind. So praying on time makes us more conscious of the priority of salat, of the status of salat. So those are two things, inshallah, for the benefit of all, including myself, inshallah. Back to the discussion that I intended for tonight is regarding, so last night I spoke of some of the obstacles. One of the obstacles, we said shaitan. Shaitan is adu. فَاتَّخِذُوهُ عَدُوًّا. We have to prepare for him. We have to know how powerful he is, and we have to know that as soon as you do ibadah, he will want to ruin it for you. He will want to ruin it for you. If you are doing good in the month of Ramadan, as soon as the month is over and his chains are off, because shayateen maghlula in the month of Ramadan, he will take revenge. And in most cases, he will ruin everyone's a'mal. Somebody asks, I shared with you that journalist made a comment, almost suggesting that they shouldn't fast. He said the Muslim Ummah have been fasting for the last 1400 years, and I don't see the result of it. There's still poverty, there's still injustice, there's still corruption, all of these things. What is this fasting? Why are they still fasting? The problem is as soon as the month of Ramadan is over, Shaitan is loose. We have not prepared for him. We're not equipped. We're not conscious of him. We fall again. And he ruins everything. It's back to zero. As if we didn't do anything. And the way you want to judge it is how were you last month of Ramadan, how are you this month? If it's the same, we're not doing anything. This is the real meaning of من تساوى يوما فهو مغبون. بقرينة من تساوى شهر رمضان of last year with this شهر Ramadan, if it's equal, we're in loss. فهو مغبون. And in the hadith of Amir al-Mu'mineen, the continuation is scary. He says, if you're not increasing, you are decreasing. And whoever is decreasing, his death is better than his life. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving us day after day life. We need to make sure we are increasing. So one obstacle and one of the ones that ruins everything for us is shaitan. We have to equip ourselves for him, seek help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and also try and get some sort of ammunition against him. The strongest ammunition is dua. The other one is what I mentioned last night, dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, continuous dhikr. Because it is when we forget, مَسَّهُمْ طَائِفٌ مِّنَ الشَّيْطَانِ تَذَكَّرُوا. You remember, then you can return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it is our forgetfulness that leads to the power of shaitan and him being able to come. Otherwise, if we are in the state of remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he cannot. So the second obstacle, which is another enemy, is regarding our nafs. And the obstacle here is regarding the lack of knowledge of our nafs. We do not know our nafs. The fact that we do not know our nafs is what often leads to nafs continuing to be that nafsul ammara that betrays us. وَخَدَعَتْنِ الدُّنْيَا بِغُرُورِهَا وَنَفْسِي بِخِيَانَتِهَا. In some recitation, بِجِنَايَتِهَا. Crime, betrayal, same. Criminal, betrayal. What? Nafsi. Why? Because I didn't tame it. Why? Because I didn't do tazkiyah. So you might ask me, which one comes first? If the nafs is this, unless I do tazkiyah, how am I going to do tazkiyah when the nafs is this? Do you see what I mean? Do you see the vicious cycle? It is not. For two reasons. One is, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not leave us to ourselves. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, كَانَ النَّاسُ أُمَّةً وَاحِدَةً فَبَعَثَ اللَّهُ نَبِيِّينَ. That ayah is often misunderstood. So people were united and God divided them with nabiyyin. Is that what it means? وَالْعَيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ. Of course not. Kana is shartiyya, not that they were. It's like kuntum khayra ummatin ukhrijat linnas bishart of what? تأمرون بالمعروف وتنهون عن المنكر. You are the best nation. The condition is you have to enjoin good and forbid evil. Here, كان الناس أمة واحدة. If it was not for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sending the nabiyyin and guiding people, they would all be one. In what sense? They will all be astray. They will all be on the wrong path. You want a proof of that in the Quran? Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim wal asr innal insana lafi khusr. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swears, wal asr innal insana lafi khusr illa alladhina amanu. Insan by nature is in loss. Insan left to himself is all united on bad, on evil. corruption, except through the guidance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which He has given us, Nabiyyin. It is Salat time, inshallah. I will continue this discussion tomorrow night. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us the life and the opportunity, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us amongst those who purify in this month of Ramadan and maintain it afterwards. We ask Him to make us amongst those who listen to what's said and follow what's best. Walhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Muhammadin wa alihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.